All right. So all these guests are coming into Gatsby's, all from New York City, from East Egg, from West Egg. And if you need a ride, if you need a ride, he'd pick you up, or he'd have somebody pick you up. If you take a train out there, there's a his buses, his station wagons out there picking people up from the train station. So let me go back up here. The last swimmers have come in from the beach now and are dressing upstairs. The cars from New York are parked five deep in the drive. And already the halls and the salons and the verandas are gaudy. You need to look up the word gaudy. It means tasteless, tacky, with primary colors. What are the primary colors? What are primary colors? What are they? There's three. So answer in the chat, or you can unmute yourself. For those of you who take art, what are the primary colors? Red, blue, yellow. Okay, red, blue, yellow. So Gatsby's mansion is getting full of people wearing red, blue, and yellow, and hair shorn in strange new ways, and shawls beyond the dreams of Castile. These people almost sound like dreams that are coming into they almost sound like zombies or something that are coming into this party. Strange new ways and shawls beyond the dreams of Castile. The bar is in full swing, and floating rounds of cocktails permeate the garden outside until the air is alive with chatter, all right? People talking, gossiping, laughter, and casual innuendo. I highlighted this over here and underlined it in red because by casual innuendo, Fitzgerald means there's sexual hints and suggestions throughout the crowd, right? And introductions forgotten on the spot. Introductions forgotten on the spot. And enthusiastic meetings between women who never knew each other's names. All right, so we're dealing with a lot of superficial people who have met each other before, but they don't remember and they forget. Okay, I put a little note on here on the side. Note Fitzgerald's language, what he means. Okay, when he writes, when he's discussing the sun setting, but look how he writes this. He writes it, the lights grow brighter as the earth lurches away from the sun. Right? The lights that he's got for out in the gardens and stuff like that, they get brighter as it gets dark outside. So he doesn't just write the sunset. No, he's got to write the lights grow brighter as the earth lurches away from the sun. And now the orchestra is playing yellow cocktail music. Yellow cocktail music. And the opera of voices pitches a key higher. Laughter is easier minute by minute, spilled with prodigality. Prodigality is spending money or resources freely, recklessly. In other words, Gatsby is wasting millions of dollars a day on these people in this party. So the orchestra is playing a yellow cocktail music, and the opera of voices pitches a key higher. Laughter is easier minute by minute, spilled with prodigality, tipped out at a cheerful word. The groups of people change more swiftly. They swell with new arrivals, dissolve and form in the same breath. Already there are wanderers, confident girls, there's flappers there, who weave here and there among the stouter and more stable, In other words, you have a lot of young girls looking for stable men with money. All right? Yellow, not green. Red, yellow, blue. Okay. Because these girls become, for a sharp, joyous moment, the center of the group. And then, excited with triumph, they glide on through the sea change of faces and voices and color under the constantly changing light. It's like a Las Vegas show or a Broadway show. Right? Suddenly, one of these gypsies in trembling opal, right? Opal's a color, in trembling opal, seizes a cocktail out of the air and dumps it down for courage. She takes a big drink of some alcohol, and moving her hands like Frisco, dances out alone on the canvas platforms. A momentary hush. The orchestra leader varies his rhythm obligingly for her. And there is a burst of chatter as the erroneous news goes around that she is Gilda Gray's understudy from the Follies. The party has begun. This is like when, if you go to a function or a dance or something like that, and the dance floor is empty and there's music playing for a while and people are talking and talking. This happens at weddings a lot. There's like a cocktail hour and people are drinking and having appetizers. And then one person gets brave and goes out on the dance floor. And that's what this woman did. I believe that on the first night I went to Gatsby's house, I was one of the few guests who had actually been invited. All right? One of the few guests who had actually been invited. Well, how do you get to a Gatsby party? How do you get in there? How do you get a ticket or an invitation? Nick is one of the few people who ever got invited. People were not invited. They went there. Does that make sense? People were not invited. They went there. Just the desire to go to a Gatsby party gave you entrance into Gatsby's mansion. All you had to do was want to be there, and you could go. They got into automobiles which bore them out to Long Island, and somehow they ended up at Gatsby's door. Once there, they were introduced by somebody who knew Gatsby, and after that, and here's this is very important, after that, the guests, they conducted themselves according to the rules of behavior associated with amusement parks. Remember the cover? Yeah. Remember the book cover? Moths. They're like moths to a light. All right, that's why the book cover's got like Coney Island up in the front, because these guests behave as if they're at an amusement park. All right. Sometimes they came and went without having met Gatsby at all. Came for the party with a simplicity of heart that was its own ticket of admission. Just simply wanting to be there got you a ticket into Gatsby's house. I had been actually invited. A chauffeur in a uniform of robin's egg blue, crossed my lawn. Yikes, sorry. Crossed my lawn early that Saturday morning with a surprisingly formal note from his employer. The honor would be entirely Gatsby's, it said, if I would attend his little party. Now that's an understatement, a little party. There's thousands of people there that night. He had seen me several times and had intended to call on me long before, but a peculiar combination of circumstances had prevented it. Signed, J. Gatsby in majestical handwriting, J. Gatsby. Dressed up in white flannels, Nick's wearing white because he's upper class. I went over to his lawn a little after 7 and wandered around rather ill at ease among the swirls and eddies of people I didn't know. Though here and there was a face I had noticed on the commuting train, I was immediately struck by the number of young Englishmen, there's some men there from England, dotted about, all well-dressed, all looking a little hungry, not for food, for something else, all looking a little hungry, and all talking in low, earnest voices to solid and prosperous Americans. I was sure that they were selling something, bonds or insurance or automobiles. They were at least agonizingly aware of the easy money in the vicinity and convinced that it was theirs for a few words in the right key. So what are these guys looking for? They're looking for easy money. As soon as I arrived, I made an attempt to find my host, but the 2 or 3 people of whom I asked his whereabouts stared at me in such an amazed way and denied so vehemently any knowledge of his movements. All right, so Nick asks for Gatsby. Hey, have you seen Mr. Gatsby? Mr. Gatsby? Nobody knows Gatsby. I don't even think he exists. All right. I slunk off in the direction of the cocktail table. Nick gets embarrassed because people are laughing at him because he's looking for Gatsby. The only place in the garden where a single man could linger without looking purposeless and alone. All right, purposeless and alone. So Nick is embarrassed, so goes to the bar to go get something until he doesn't look like he's some fool all by himself there. I was on my way to get roaring drunk from sheer embarrassment when Jordan Baker, well, look who showed up. Look who's there, Jordan Baker from chapter 1, the golfer. Jordan Baker came out of the house and stood at the head of the marble steps, leaning a little backward and looking with contemptuous interest down into the garden. He uses this word a lot for Jordan, contemptuous. We'll do this color, contemptuous. Showing contempt, scorn, showing hate, kind of disgust. All right, looking with contemptuous interest down into the garden. Welcome or not, I found it necessary to attach myself to someone before I should begin to address cordial remarks to the passers-by. Hello, I roared, advancing toward her. My voice seemed unnaturally loud across the garden. I thought you might be here, she responded absently. She responded absently as I came up. I remembered you lived next door to... She held my hand impersonally. She held my hand impersonally, Jordan did, as a promise that she'd take care of me in a minute, and gave ear to two girls in twin yellow dresses, who stopped at the foot of the steps. Hello, they cried together. Sorry you didn't win. That was for the golf tournament that Jordan had been in. She had lost in the finals the week before. You don't know who we are, said one of the girls in yellow, but we met you here about a month ago. You've dyed your hair since then, remarked Jordan, and I started, but the girls had moved casually on. And her remark was addressed to the premature moon, produced like the supper, no doubt, out of a caterer's basket. Okay, so note, Jordan, well, I'll come over here. What kind of people are we dealing with, Jordan and these twins, all right, and these guests? They're superficial people. They're just surface only. They're very shallow people. Right? Jordan's slender golden arm rested in mine, her golden arm. Note that Jordan has autumn yellow hair and a golden arm. So we know what gold represents. Now we got to start thinking about what yellow represents. And there's a lot of yellow in this chapter. And I'm starting to think that yellow is connected to superficial people who are surface, shallow. A tray of cocktails floated at us through the twilight, and we sat down at a table with the two girls in yellow and the three men, each one introduced as Mr. Mumble. Okay, Mr. Mumble. Nick couldn't remember these guys' names. That's how inconsequential they are. So Nick and Jordan sit down at a table with the two girls in yellow and three other men. Do you come to these parties often? Inquired Jordan of the girl beside her. The last one was the one I met you at. In other words, yeah, I come to these parties often. I met you. Don't you remember? But these are superficial people, so that Jordan doesn't remember. The last one, I'm sorry. She turned to her companion. Wasn't it for you, Lucille? It was for Lucille, too. I like to come, Lucille said. I never care what I do, all right? I never care what I do. Carelessness. This is carelessness. Yellow is careless, all right? Superficial, careless people. Yellow. I never care what I do, so I always have a good time. When I was here last, I tore my gown on a high chair, and he asked me my name and address. He, as in Gatsby, asked her name. Lucille tore her dress at one of the parties. And inside of a week, I got a package from Croyer's with a new evening gown in it. So she tore her dress and Gatsby sent her a new one. Did you keep it? Asked Jordan. Sure I did. I was going to wear it tonight, but it was too big in the bust and had to be altered. It was gas blue with lavender beads. $265 $1922. All right. She tore her dress. Gatsby sends her a brand new one with some beads. The dress alone is worth $4,237.68 in 2021 money. Just because she tore her dress, he sent her a new one like that. Gas blue, though. There's something funny about a fellow that'll do a thing like that. And here comes the gossip, said the other girl eagerly. He doesn't want any trouble with anybody. Who doesn't? I inquired. Gatsby. Somebody told me. The two girls and Jordan leaned together confidently. Somebody told me they thought he killed a man once. Rumors. A thrill passed over all of us. The three Mr. Mumbles bent forward and listened eagerly. I don't think it's so much that, argued Lucille skeptically. It's more that he was a German spy during the war. One of the men nodded in confirmation. Okay, these guests are kind of characterized like Myrtle. They like gossip, right? Which is considered lower class. I heard that from a man who knew all about him, grew up with him in Germany. He assured us positively. Oh no, said the first girl. It couldn't be that because he was in the American army during the war. As our credibility, as our credibility or trusting these people switched back to her, she leaned forward with enthusiasm. You look at him sometimes when he thinks nobody's looking at him. I'll bet he killed a man. All right, rumors about Gatsby. He's a German spy, or he killed a man. She narrowed her eyes and shivered. Lucille shivered. We all turned and looked around for Gatsby. It was a testimony to the romantic speculation he inspired, okay? The romantic speculation he inspired, the gossip he inspired, that there were whispers about him from those who had found little that it was necessary to whisper about. In other words, these people don't have much to talk about, so they're going to talk about Gatsby. The first supper, right? Because it's not just one supper, there's a couple of dinners. The first supper, there would be another one after midnight, was now being served, and Jordan invited me to join her own party, who were spread around the table on the other side of the garden. Okay, so Jordan's got her own group of people, all right? Jordan's group of people, of course, are going to be East Eggers, old money. So there's a lot of West Eggers. There's a lot of lower class people here. There's a lot of rich people, a lot of poor people, but there's some East Egg people too, old money. So on the other side of the Jordan's group was now being served, and Jordan invited me to join her party, who were spread around the table on the other side of the garden. There were three married couples and Jordan's escort. Jordan's got a date. A persistent undergraduate given to violent innuendo, and obviously, talking about Jordan's date, and obviously under the impression that sooner or later Jordan was going to yield him up. Okay, so Jordan's date is probably lower class, and he thinks that Jordan can move him up in social class, move him up her person to a greater or lesser degree. All right. This last sentence it's one of the questions that you have, and you have to interpret it, and it's not easy. All right. Instead of rambling, this party had preserved a dignified homogeneity and assumed itself to the function of representing the staid nobility of the countryside. East Egg condescending to West Egg, and carefully on guard against its spectroscopic gaiety. What are these East Eggers protecting themselves from? Are East Eggers afraid of something? Okay, so instead of rambling, instead of gossiping, right, this party, the East Eggers, had preserved, you need to use the dictionary for this, you click up here, right, had preserved a dignified, showing respect. Hold on, let's go. The quality or state of being the same. Okay, so they're showing respect to themselves as East Eggers old money, and they assumed itself to the functioning of representing the staid nobility, the upper class. All right, so they're being respectful to the upper class that they belong to. East Eggers condescending. The East Eggers were looking down like they're superior to everybody at the party, and carefully on guard against it spectroscopic, as in the colors of a rainbow. A spectroscope takes light and it splits it into the colors of the rainbow, into the prism, all right? and gaiety in this sense is happiness. So what Fitzgerald is writing here is that the East Eggers are staying to themselves away from the West Eggers and the other lower class people. And they're kind of watching everything, but they're very careful. They're protecting themselves from getting drawn into the fun, to the craziness, to the joy of the party. They're just being stuck up in the corner is what they're doing. Let's get out, whispered Jordan after a somehow wasteful and inappropriate half hour. This is much too polite for me. We got up and she explained that we were going to find the host. She goes, we're going to find Gatsby. I'd never met him, she said, and it was making me uneasy. The undergraduate nodded in a cynical, melancholy way. The bar where we glanced first was crowded, but Gatsby was not there. She couldn't find him from the top of the steps, and he wasn't on the veranda. So they're going through all the party, the crowds of people, looking for Gatsby. On a chance, we tried an important-looking door and walked into a high Gothic library, paneled with carved English oak and probably transported from some ruin overseas. A stout, big, middle-aged man with enormous owl-eyed spectacles was sitting somewhat drunk on the edge of a great table, staring with unsteady concentrations at the bookshelves. What do we know about owls? Owls. Owls are associated with witchcraft sometimes. Owls are said to predict the future. Owls are also very, very intelligent. All right? Very intelligent. So there's this man sitting there in the library and he's drunk. As we entered, he wheeled excitedly around and examined Jordan from head to foot. What do you think? He demanded impetuously. About what? Nick says. He waved his hand toward the bookshelves. About that. As a matter of fact, you didn't bother to ascertain. I ascertained. They're real. The books? He nodded. Absolutely real. Have pages and everything. I thought they'd be a nice, durable cardboard. Matter of fact, they're absolutely real. Pages, and here, let me show you. Taking our skepticism for granted, he rushed to the bookcase and returned the volume 1 of the Stoddard Lectures. See, he cried triumphantly, it's a bona fide piece of printed matter. It fooled me. This fella's a regular Belasco. He's a triumph. What thoroughness, what realism. He knew when to stop, too. Didn't cut the pages. But what do you want? What do you expect? All right, so what the heck's going on there? Okay, so these people who have these mansions, they have libraries in their mansions, right? And they fill them with all the right books that people are supposed to have to show that they're intelligent, right? So West Eggers, what they usually do, or what a lot of the rich do, is in their library, they spend a lot of money on every single book because every single book doesn't look like this. No, it's got a cardboard heavy cover with expensive fabric over it or paper and gold writing. All the writing is in gold leaf, gold. Very expensive, every book. So Gatsby's got a couple of thousand books in his library, all right? And that's okay. I know people are having problems with the iPads. No worries. I'm recording this anyway. I'll put it in Canvas. So usually when people open up a book in one of these libraries, the cover's beautiful, but inside it's blank. The pages have no writing on them. They're just buying the book covers. Nobody reads these books. They're just for show, all right? But Gatsby has gone to the trouble of ordering real books that you could read. And he didn't cut the pages. He didn't do that to them or anything like that to make it seem like he was reading any of them. So this guy, Owl Eyes, is calling Gatsby out. He's calling him something, all right? He's accusing Gatsby of something. He's calling him a thing. What do you think he's calling him? Share my screen. All right, let me give you a hint. Belasco, he said, the ally says Gatsby's a regular Belasco. Belasco's a major theater producer of the 1920s, and he had these huge, huge shows on Broadway, okay, with these great, huge theater sets. But if you've ever seen the set or the walls and so forth like that,
He's
he's
calling
what?
him a fake.
He's calling him a
Is he?
fake. Good. Very good. He's calling him a fake. This guy's just a fake. All right. Um, okay, so yeah, the real pages, libraries, books. There's notes here for when you're answering the questions. So he's the first one to call him a fake. He snatched the book from me and replaced it hastily on its shelf, muttering that if one brick was removed, the whole library was liable to collapse. Okay, this is important. This means that we must wait or search for a crack. I'll tell you why. All right. Every single line of Fitzgerald's writing is measured and rewritten. Okay. And this guy, Allies, says, be careful. We better put that book back because you take one out, the whole library is liable to collapse. Okay. All right. Thank you, Ms. Mathur. What Fitzgerald's writing is that you expose one truth about a liar, you expose one truth, and all their lies start to fall apart, unravel. And that means that we, the reader, have to listen for a crack, a sound, a noise in the future. And there is one. Fitzgerald plants it in the book. All right. Who brought you? He demanded, or did you just come? I was brought. Most people were brought. Jordan looked at him alertly, cheerfully, without answering. He continued, Mrs. Claude Roosevelt, do you know her? I met her somewhere last night. I've been drunk for about a week now, and I thought it might sober me up to sit in the library. Has it? A little bit, I think. I can't tell yet. I've only been here an hour. Did I tell you about the books? They're real. You told us. We shook hands with him gravely and went back outdoors. There was dancing now on the canvas in the garden, old men pushing young girls backward in eternal graceless circles. All right, old men pushing girls. All right, these old men are probably married, and these young girls are flappers looking for quick money. Young girls backwards in eternal graceless circles. Superior couples holding each other tortuously, fashionably, and keeping in the corners. And a great number of single girls dancing individualistically, or relieving the orchestra for a moment of the burden of the banjos or the traps. Okay, so banjos and traps. So this is jazz that they're playing, right? This is jazz music. It's the 1920s. Jazz was spread all over the country from New Orleans and the Harlem Renaissance. All right, but this is Southern jazz. It's got banjos and traps are a certain kind of drum kit. All right, so I wonder why Gatsby would have Southern jazz instead of just Northern jazz. Okay, it is 12 after, and it's time to go to Schumann's class. We will pick up here tomorrow. We'll finish the chapter. You can start the questions if you want. Okay, this. Okay, so we're right here. All right, very good. So we'll continue, and I will post this reading onto Canvas if you need to review it. I should have office hours today. I don't think we have any meetings.